back into yet another edition of NBC 16 Sports Talk. We liked sports reporter Jack Demmler so much last week, we figure we have him back again. Jack, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be in the state of Oregon. I don't know if the Oregon State Beavers are. I think they still wish they were down in Omaha, Nebraska. We're focusing on the College Baseball World Series today and the fact that, unfortunately, those Beavers did come home a little earlier than they had planned.
Yeah, it was a tough one, a tough way to lose, especially.
Sure.
I mean, you battled back. It was a game that they were down for most of it. They battled back in the ninth, but alas.
That's what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Elimination game after elimination game, back against the wall, they always rose up. So we're thinking they're right where they want them, right?
Yeah.
And then, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're all right. Then they had that, I don't know if you want to call it a collapse. They just gave Louisville the opportunity to come back and win it, and that's what Louisville did.
And it was kind of, it felt like a slow bleed. I was watching it, and you're kind of, you see the Beavers take advantage of a Louisville error in the top of the ninth. They tie the game up, and you're thinking they've got life. And then the bottom of the ninth comes around slowly. I believe, was it a hit and a couple walks, something like that? And the bases get loaded up, no outs. You're like, all you need is a bloop, and this game's over. And that's exactly what happened. Didn't it feel kind of like a painful watch in that bottom of the ninth?
Yeah, I mean, you go into the bottom of the ninth, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, you have to get the first three guys out because Louisville had their top of the lineup. Eddie King Jr. was batting in the 5-hole. That's their sort of star. So you're thinking, if we want to go to extras, we got to get 1, 2, 3 out, and they just couldn't do it. They had the walk to start, then they had the catcher interference.
That's right.
That one sort of hurt them because now you got runners on first and second. Louisville lays down a sacrifice bunt that you're like, okay, you would think that we can get at least one out and then play from that way, but then you have the error. The pitcher comes up, he tries to make a play without getting the ball, and Louisville has bases loaded with 0 outs, and at that moment you're like,
it's anything. A ball to the outfield on the ground or in the air, this thing's over. And the sac fly was more than far enough to get a runner in, and the rest is history, right? Beavers are on a bird back over here, and Louisville goes on to what ultimately ended up being a fate similar to the Oregon State, but the stage is set now.
Yeah, but you did mention how a ball to the outfield or a ball in play would score a run for Louisville.
You were hot about this a minute ago because the top of the ninth,
Oregon State had that same opportunity. They had runners on second and third with no outs against them. All you need is a ball in play that can score a run. They don't get it. They had 2 strikeouts and a ground out. So, that's sort of, I think, what makes it even tougher. Oregon State had, I believe, 12 runners left on base, 8 runners left in scoring position.
Yeah.
So, it's statistics like that you look back on, and it's like you have to, if you have runners in scoring position, you have to get them in. And, going back to that top of the ninth with a runner on third and a runner on second, I think the issue was they weren't more aggressive at the plate. I think there were a couple pitches. The first strikeout that was called, there was a pitch that was coming high, and it looked like it was coming to the letters, and then it falls down just a little bit. So, I think the fact that they laid off on that pitch, I think that definitely hurt them. I think they saw it the first time it resulted in a strikeout. They also watched it the next batter. So I think
getting a little too selective.
Yeah, you need to be in a situation like that, especially one where you came back. Ivar Arquette hit the home run on the first pitch he saw. I think you have to be aggressive in those instances because that's how you win the game.
That's how baseball works, though. It's that game. It's that battle within the battle. Louisville, one team being aggressive, trying to get a bat on the ball, and whatever happens, happens. And it led to catcher's interference. It led to the sac fly, where Oregon State just didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And you mentioned the 8 runners in scoring position left on. I looked it up. They were 1 for 15 in the game with runners in scoring position throughout. The one hit, a single that didn't score any runs. So it's those missed opportunities. That's the stuff that this Beaver squad is probably going to be kicking themselves for throughout the summer and into next year.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I think back to the Florida State game in the Super Regional, the one where they actually did walk it off. They also had a bad statistic with runners in scoring position going late.
Just enough.
Yeah, and they just enough.
That's enough. That was their whole story in the postseason. Just enough. You're back. You're coming over, and then the magic just ran dry.
Yeah, it was just. That's what I thought was going to happen in Florida State.
Sure.
It's like you would run out of that magic, but they made it work there. So you sort of had that confidence of like, hey, we were bad with runners in scoring position for most of the game, but the ninth is always a new ball game with this team.
Yeah.
Got to be proud of the fight that they put in, but unfortunately they just couldn't finish.
I don't remember who it was. One of the players after the game was mentioning, the ninth, they were still lively in the dugout. They were lively in the clubhouse because they know like that's their time to shine. Now the team obviously, like we said, might be kicking themselves over some of the missed opportunities throughout the summer, but it's not that moment where they're off to the MLB draft, at least not entirely. A lot of youth on this team, so a lot of these dudes can go ahead and grow from this, maybe seeing themselves return to Omaha. Do you think that they're thinking the same way?
Yeah, and I think we heard that from the team, is that it's nice to have the young guys on this team get that experience. So that they can come back the next season, they can make the return to Omaha, and they can change the story. They can flip the script, and they can bring home a national championship. And, I know we talked about him last week, but Dax Whitney is a freshman pitcher last year.
Yeah.
A lot of upside to that man. I mean, he had, I believe, 9 strikeouts in his first appearance on the mound in Omaha. So, I mean,
unbelievable.
He's that bright spot that you're going to look to, assuming he'll be back for the Beavers next season.
That assumption, though. It's a new time in college sports, man. You got the draft, obviously, to watch out for because there's a lot of talent stocked up on that roster. You have the transfer portal, which in recent memory has hurt Oregon State a lot. Now, a lot of that has to do with their lack of conference alignment ever since the Pac-12 was reduced down to 2 teams. Baseball team playing independently, still able to be competitive, obviously. They were in Omaha. Do you think that we'll maybe see baseball kind of be the exception to the rule here because of how competitive they have been in recent memory and historically? That maybe people are willing to put up with that independent play.
Yeah, I think that's a tough a tough answer because I look for comparison. I look at Notre Dame football, also independent. You do have some players that definitely want to play for a conference championship, or you want to be in conference play to get a little more stability. But Oregon State they created their own schedule, and they did it in a way that was favorable to what the people would look at for postseason. I mean, you had so many games on the road. That was a big point of emphasis for this team, is their ability to be comfortable playing away from home and making the road their home. So I think there is that, you want to play in a conference, you want the conference championship, but there are some players who even talked about before heading to Omaha is you don't go to Oregon State to play for a conference championship. You go to play for a national championship.
Omaha,
You go to play in Omaha. And I think that's what a lot of people could be looking for as well. Is like, hey, we don't need that conference alignment if we can make it to Omaha.
You got to think it's a team that had a chip on their shoulder coming into the season. Hey, we're going to play the schedule that we made. You might look at it and say, that's a lot of road games. That's a lot of high blue blood schedules here, a lot of like high competition on this schedule. And guess what? They went right through it. They got themselves to Omaha. That chip on that shoulder may have just grown to keep them around for one more year. So, Jack, we'll keep you around for one more year. Watch your chip grow as well on that shoulder. Thank you so much for stopping by and tuning in for another edition of NBC 16 Sports Talk.